guys! In today's video, we're going to be taking apart and rebuilding a Lenovo Thinkpad to get a closer look at what's inside and how we can basically see how the components are working together. Now, before we jump in, let's take a quick look at the tools we'll be using for this process. We're gonna need a precision screwdriver set, a prying tool, and a few accessories to help us safely remove the components without damaging them. Alright, let's get into it. First, we make sure that the laptop is completely powered off so it's safe to work on. Then we start unscrewing all the screws on the bottom panel. Okay, side note, please put your screwdrivers in a safe area so that we don't lose any screws in the future when reassembling. Now that we've unscrewed all the screws, we have to disconnect the battery, and this is really important for safety, so make sure you do this. Next, we have the RAM, or random access memory. This is where your laptop stores data it's currently using, which helps with speed and multitasking. Now, to remove it, we push the clips on the sides and it's going to pop up so we can slide it out. Next, we have the Wi-Fi card. This allows the laptop to connect to wireless networks and access our internet. To remove it, we disconnect the antenna cables, unscrew it, and slide it out. And right here, you can actually see it's connected to a couple wires, so we're just going to disconnect them safely and gently. Next, we have the cooling system, which includes the fan and the heatsink. This helps keep the laptop from overheating by removing the heat from the processor. To remove it, we need to unplug the fan cable and unscrew the components before lifting them out. Next, we move onto the storage device. This is where all the files, applications, and operating systems are stored. To remove it, we unscrew it and slide it out carefully. Then after we do that, we make sure to put it in a safe place. Now, moving on to the hinges, it's a good idea to keep track of where each screw goes since different parts have different size screws. Now back to the hinges. To remove them, we need to unscrew them from both the base and the screen assembly, and you'll notice that there are multiple screws on each side that we have to remove one by one. Next, we start disconnecting the ribbon cables. These cables connect to components like the keyboard, touchpad, and display to the motherboard. They're very delicate, so instead of pulling them, we gently lift the connectors and slide the cables out. Now, we're going to be working on removing the upper assembly, which involves quite a few screws and internal connections. You'll notice that there are multiple screws holding everything together, so we're going to take our time and carefully remove each one. We're going to be removing additional screws that secure the internal frame and components. This step can take some time because everything inside of the laptop can be packed tightly. Now that we got most of our internal connections removed, we can safely separate the screen from the main body of the laptop. But remember, when doing this, it's also important to go slowly and make sure nothing is still connected. Any remaining cables or screws could cause damage if forced. Since everything's removed, we're just gonna put the motherboard there since there's nothing connecting it. It's speaker time. These are responsible for producing sound from the laptop. As you can see, these are secured with multiple screws, so we'll need to take our time when removing each one. We go ahead and unscrew all of the screws holding the speakers in place. After that, we carefully disconnect the cables and lift them out. This step does take a bit longer because there are several screws and connections to deal with, but once we've removed the speakers, they basically come out very easily. Now we move on to the reassembly process. This is where we put everything back together by following the same steps just in reverse. We're gonna start by putting the speakers back into position by reconnecting the cables and screwing them back securely. You'll notice that we're tightening multiple screws here to make sure everything is properly held back in place. After we've screwed on our screws, we're going to carefully place back our motherboard into position and reconnect all the necessary cables. Make sure they're secure. And from here, we continue rebuilding the laptop step by step. We reinstall the remaining components, connect the cables, and just screw everything back in place. Remember to connect your ribbon cables as well. As you can see, there are quite a few screws that we need to screw back involved in this process, so we need to take our time and make sure everything is properly secured and nothing is left loose. This part of the process does require a little patience because we're essentially reversing everything we just did, but by following the same order, it makes reassembly much easier. And we're just going to continue to reconnect the components and secure everything step by step, making sure each part is properly placed before moving on to the next. Now, as we continue putting back our components like the fan and the Wi-Fi card, here are some neat comparisons of the laptop and old computers. Now, in older computers, especially the desktop systems, components were much larger and easier to access. You could essentially open them up and clearly see how each part is, and upgrades were a lot more straightforward. But with the modern laptops like this Lenovo Thinkpad, everything is much more compact and tightly packed together. This kind of makes it more portable and efficient, but also a bit more complex to take apart and reassemble. And as you can see here, there are a lot of small screws and connectors holding everything in place. That's because manufacturers are trying to fit as much performance as possible into a smaller space. Another big difference is how components are integrated. In older systems, parts were more separate and easier to replace, but in the modern laptops, many components are designed to work closely together, which improves performance, but make repairs a lot challenging. You'll also notice that everything is designed with precision. Each component has a specific place, and everything needs to be aligned correctly during disassembly. And this can really shift towards a compact design, which allows the laptops today to be thinner, lighter, and basically more powerful than the older systems. At the same time, it also means that handling these components require more care, especially with things like cables and connectors, which you can actually see us struggling to put and assemble here. But as we continue putting everything back together, you can really see how much detail is put into the design of the modern laptop. By placing the bottom cover back onto the Lenovo Thinkpad and making sure everything is properly aligned, we're gonna then secure it by tightening all the screws together, taking our time to ensure everything is evenly fastened. Then after that, we're gonna reconnect the battery, which is the final internal component needed before powering on our system. Once that's done, we basically complete the final set of screws to fully secure the laptop. And just like that, we've taken apart and rebuilt a Lenovo Thinkpad from the inside out. What started as a pile of screws and components is now a fully working system again, which really shows how everything has come together perfectly to function. It might look simple when it's done, but a lot of precision and practice goes into getting it right. So if it powers on, we did a good job, and if not, well, we might be doing this all over again. Thank you!